College football is back, and we're back with two huge Florida State Seminole fans on the Big Mountain.
Hey, welcome back to the Big Mountain. JY, Steve, we've got Doug, we've got TJ. We did an FSU preview with these two. Had to have them back after this huge week one win. Want to hear from these guys? I'm throwing it to Doug first because Doug put his money where his mouth is. The Seminoles did. And props to you, sir. Well done. How you feeling after week one?
Well, first, thanks for having us back. It is
Yeah.
nice to take a victory lap, and we had no expectation other than, of course, me and Lee Corso having an expectation. But, I wish I could have actually put my money where my mouth was. I'm not generally a gambler, but those would have been some good odds. It's one thing to come on and prognosticate and throw a bunch of stuff on Twitter. Look, the app is designed to let people say whatever crazy stuff is in their head. And I just happen to say the crazy thing, which is I believed in Gus and I believed in Tommy C together as a marriage. And I saw what he could do with Nick Marshall, another short running quarterback. And I just believe that his best days weren't necessarily behind him. So it was just a matter of it coming together. And so many fans, including all the beat writers and everyone that TJ had talked to leading up to this, were just traumatized. It was a trauma-informed PTSD week one preparation, and not many people were willing to take the step. I will personally say it hurt my heart to hear TJ on show after show after show and line after line say nobody picked FSU because this guy did. Not enough to put money on it, but at least I was out there laying it out on the line, waiting for everybody to come in the paint and tell me how wrong I was.
All right, TJ, how about you? What'd you see there in week one? I mean, was there much more you could have asked for coming out of that game? I mean, that was about as good as the Seminoles, I think, could have wished for, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody would say no, unless you're Mike Norvell. He said he was pissed off they didn't score more. Like, dude, and we saw him for a year last year, and I'm going to own up to, I'll get to, what I really need to do here and eat some crow. But we saw him for a year look like a sad puppy dog on the sideline, right? Like, and then he comes out after the game and says, I'm pissed. We didn't win by more. Like, dude, fire me up. Like, I'm ready to go, man. Like, put a uniform on. I don't know that I'll get in, but I'll put one on. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's, nothing more that you could have really wanted to see. Because even when people were maybe predicting FSU or thinking FSU had a chance to cover or keep it close or win, whatever, it was like, hey, we're going to need to, we're going to need a couple of turnovers. We're going to need things to go our way. We're going to need Simpson to not play super well. We're going to need all these things. They didn't need anything. They lined up and they just beat the tar out of Alabama. And so, yeah, I mean, we would still be taking a victory lap had Florida State gotten lucky, a punt return touchdown or 3 Simpson interceptions. Right? We would still take that victory lap, but it is so much better to just go out and beat the crap out of a team than to get lucky and win. We've gotten lucky and won before. We've gotten unlucky and lost before. When you just line up and you're the better team, and that's where I think a lot of people would say, like, look, I mean, we guys, Doug, I didn't lie. I didn't expect us to just go dominate them the way that we did, right? And so that to me was what was most impressive. But yeah, I mean, I put a video out earlier this week of like everybody that was wrong, and I put myself first, right? Like, I was there too. Every show I did, every time somebody asked me, I mean, I picked against them. I didn't believe. So yeah, shout out to Doug, and most importantly, shout out to Lee Corso. So I'm glad that at least two guys had us in their corner.
Well, I'll give a shout out to Steve real quick. I don't know if he had them winning, but he did take the points with FSU because he definitely questioned the Bama side of things. So go ahead, Steve. What do you have to say?
And that's where I was going. I appreciate you giving me a little shout out, and I want to go back to Doug, but before I do, yeah, I think I helped manifest this thing a bit because when I went back and watched our show, so that I wanted to make sure I was not speaking out of turn. But Doug and I were talking, and first of all, I said, I don't know why people are just assuming Bama is so good. The last time we saw them, they got their asses handed to them by Michigan in that bowl game, and they got run over. Very similar to what Florida State and the Gus Bus did to them in week one. So we talked about that. And Doug, there was this little line I threw at you where I said, man, how's it going to feel? Get in the fourth quarter, Florida State's got a lead, the war chant's going. I'm sure that was a pretty cool moment. So tell us, what were you feeling? How did that feel?
Well, first off, I was jealous. In some regards, I was not at the game. I know TJ was. I hosted a big party at my house. It's an annual Labor Day tradition, a big pig party. But I did get to sit next to Ermon Lane, former Florida State player, wide receiver. So we were talking about it, and we got into the fourth quarter, and it's 24-7, just like everybody predicted it would be. I mean, that's what was comical is that. And to Mike's point, you have to understand there's layers to what Mike was saying when he was saying he was pissed. The first LSU game, Florida State was going to get run over. It was exactly the same language we heard. It did come down to a block kick, but that's only because we fumbled at the 1 yard line when we were about to score. That should have been a 2 or even potentially a 3-score win the first time we played LSU. Then the second time, we've now got to see how Jordan Travis learned to throw the ball and was really, slicing them up, had some great receivers that was catching the ball. That was a 3-score game that could have been a 4-score game, but LSU scored late. So that's where Mike's frustration is. He always says, and he said the same thing leading up to the Alabama game, it doesn't matter who the opponent is. The play is the opponent. The execution is the opponent. Execute perfectly. You win, you lose, that you leave it on the field. And going back to TJ's point, it wasn't a fluke. It wasn't a rainy weather game that the ball was popping all over the place and we just happened to fall in it more times than them. The favorite video of mine is watching one of our tight ends put the Alabama linebacker on his butt on a running play to the right side. I mean, and TJ can call the names out. He's better at that than I am. But the idea that we exactly did what you said, lined it up and smashed them in the mouth. I mean, Alabama needs to worry about whether or not they've got a 2-10 schedule ahead of them.
TJ, what would give us the feels? What was it like being in a stadium? Just give us some thoughts.
Yeah. So shout out, I won't call him by name because I don't want to put people's business out there, but Doug was talking about like not taking them. One of the guys in the section that I was sitting in did take, I mean, he lives in Vegas. He put $1,000 on the FSU money line. So yeah, some people. And he said I was drunk when I did it, so I'm not putting him in. I'm not putting him in the Doug and Corso category because, Doug was in his right mind mostly when he made that pick. But yeah, some people took the money line, and I said, "You're buying all the drinks when we get out of here." So, but yeah, man, it was incredible. And I've talked about this on different shows. Last year, I went to the Florida-Miami game, and I promise I'm going somewhere with this. And the crowd was incredible, right? It was a top 15 match or top 20 matchup. Both teams had a lot of hype going into the year. There was so much excitement. You're playing a rival, and Miami came out and just immediately started to pound on Florida, and Florida wasn't close. And I went to that game because I thought, first of all, I get to see one of my rivals lose. But second of all, the Swamp is still a fun place to go watch a game. Now, it's a dump, but it's a fun. I mean, you got 90,000 people that are just out of their mind watching college football, yelling and screaming. It's exciting. I was going up to Tallahassee for our game on Labor Day that weekend anyway. And so I went. And it was dead. It was deader than a doornail. If Florida State would have done the same, like if Florida State gave their fans something to cheer about, everybody was excited about the new renovations. And everybody was excited about new players and coaches. And everybody was excited about all these things. But if Bama goes up 17-0 in that game, it's deader than a doornail, right? It was the best environment in college football this weekend, without a doubt. But if the team wouldn't have delivered, it wouldn't have mattered, right? Just like that game last year that I went to, Florida and Miami. The home team didn't deliver, so the atmosphere sucked. And so, yes, the atmosphere was phenomenal, and it was one of the best. I mean, I would compare it to, it's not quite, Doug will know what I'm talking about, that 2011 Oklahoma game. It wasn't quite that, but it was comparable to like 2014 Clemson, 2014 Notre Dame. It was very similar to those, like big-time atmospheres and environments. But it doesn't take much to get fans excited. They've been drinking all day anyway. The team has to be what brings the juice. And if the team doesn't bring enough juice, the fans are just sitting there on their hands, man. And so, but it was amazing being there. It was so freaking cool. And I sat on my hands the whole time. Doug said, yeah, we're up 24-7 to start. I mean, I was thinking that too. I was like, yeah, just like we all predicted. I thought that same thing. And they held on.
Jumping in, that's a good point to pivot to what's coming, because let me be very clear in what TJ is saying about the atmosphere at Florida State. It is a great place. If you're just a fan of college football, it needs to be on your bucket list. But to that point, going backwards chronologically, we had Notre Dame in a season opener with Mackenzie Milton as our quarterback and coming out of COVID, and Notre Dame was ranked 8th and Florida State was unranked. And we took them to overtime. We had that environment, but it was a loss. Oklahoma comes to town, and that place is going crazy. There's a YouTube video about 3 straight false starts at the goal line when they're trying to punt the ball out of the end zone. That was an amazing atmosphere, but Florida State lost. The difference was getting to have that cathartic experience of not just the amazing atmosphere, but the victory to go with it. That was special. You have to go back to 1993, Miami over Florida State over Miami, 28-10, leading to that first national title game before you have that winning atmosphere. What I'm doing now, looking forward, is I'm circling October 4th. I will be at the Miami game in Tallahassee this time. And if Miami can hold serve against USF and Florida, not gimme games, and as long as we take care of business in Virginia on a Friday night, 2 top 10 undefeated Florida schools meeting in what will surely be a game day Saturday event, that's going to be the next most electrifying experience at Doak Campbell Stadium.
All of Doug's drinks are on me that weekend because he picked this. He picked this right, and I picked it wrong. So look, listen. I'll stand in the paint with you, Doug. All the drinks are on me, especially when you come by the tailgate. So
Cheers.
Well, Doug called FSU the SEC killer in our preview.
Yes.
They do it again.
he did.
And I think we want to ask. I mean, Doug, you kind of just spoke to this. I've seen you on Twitter X kind of gaming up that whole, let's go undefeated and Miami go undefeated and that's, duke this sucker out here in a few weeks. TJ, I want to hear from you though. Has this changed at all your perception of this team kind of, moving forward? Of course, we just did a preview. Of course, it's only week 1. But did it change what you saw and the outcome? Did it change anything for you and what maybe is coming ahead here for the Seminoles?
Yeah, I mean, Doug, for every fan in the fan base besides Doug, it had to, right? Like Doug had us win 9-10 games anyway. So
8.
maybe
The first 8 games are wins.
So I mean, but I would, so that maybe even Doug, I would think it has to. I would think that now there's a difference between talent and then how good a team is, right? So you won't play a more talented team all year, but you may play some better teams. You may play some teams that play together well, have more effort, better execution, better quarterback play, those kind of things, right? You got to go on the road to Clemson. You got to go on the road to the Swamp. So you'll play, I think you won't play more talented teams, but you will play probably better teams. However, with this result, there's not one game on the schedule that you can look at and say, yeah, if Florida State plays well again, they're not going to be in this game, right? Like 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't have given them a chance against Clemson on the road. Now, maybe. Clemson didn't look great against LSU. No points in the second half, 10 points overall. So I think Clemson will get better by that point. And, we'll see where injuries are and all that stuff. But there's a chance Florida State gets better by that point too. So, yeah, I think you'd have to readjust the way you're looking at things. And maybe some of those 50-50 games are more like 70-30 games. And maybe those games where you thought you had a 20 to 25% chance, maybe they're closer to you got a 40 to 45% chance. So, yeah, I think if you're doing a win share or just a outright win or loss, you've got to adjust the way you're looking at this. I don't remember exactly what I gave, either 6-6 or 7-5 on here, but I'm close. I'm much closer to 8 or 9. And if they beat Miami, I'll probably be all the way up to 10 at that point. So a long way to go. It's one game. If Bama goes 2-10 this year, everybody thought Georgia Tech had a good win last year to start the season. Newsflash, they didn't, right? So if Bama goes 2-10 or 4-8 or something, maybe this wasn't that impressive of a win, right? So I do think that you do have to put the caveat of it is one game. Let's see how they continue to play. But yeah, my expectations have skyrocketed for them for sure.
And my recalibration isn't as dramatic because, of course, I already had this game as a win. And frankly, I already had Miami as a win. I believed in these starters. I believed in the system. I'm a Coach Norvell homer all the way. I've met him several times, and he's just a great dude that I want to see succeed. What concerns me is the second level players, the third stringers, and we played 55 players in that game. So we did do what we needed to do to shore up our depth by giving them experience. Now, these next 2 weeks, we're playing against some of the worst teams in the FBS, and we've got a chance to get some more experience for those second and third string players. Walk-ons are on our depth chart. And Miami isn't my concern. It should be. I mean, Miami's going to be a good team. They showed out very well against Notre Dame. They won that game. But I'm not worried about the talent. I'm worried about the injuries. So
Yeah.
that's why I had concern about that ninth game, which is no NC State in Raleigh. DJ's going to be at that game. I pray that I'm wrong, but I had a lot of people coming at me saying, "Look, you picked 8 wins in the first 8 games. Are you going to change those guesses?" No. Well, first off, I put that in Sharpie. I didn't put those in pencil. Unlike Josh Pate. Josh Pate said you should put your prognostications in pencil. Though that was Sharpie, baby. And I think we're going to have some problems with depth as we go forward. Now, if that experience continues to accelerate, to TJ's point, the floor is substantially higher than it was before. If we can navigate Miami, and then if we can navigate again a Pitt team that should be talented, that's when really the ACC championship is on the table. But all we have to do is beat Miami or Clemson. We don't even have to beat both. Beat Miami or Clemson, hold serve on the rest of the games, and we'll be in Charlotte in December.
I'm just going to make a guess after going back and watching the show. Neither one of you are worried about that road trip to Stanford anymore.
I'll tell you the one thing. Yeah. So no, Florida State should line up and beat that team. It is crappy to play 2 Friday night games in tough environments. One in Raleigh, which Florida State, that's been a house of horrors for years. Another one the week before Miami, you're playing in Charlottesville. Now, I think Florida State's supremely talented, more, over Virginia. But a Friday night in conference, always weird stuff happens. We remember, Doug, 2014, we beat Boston College 14-0. And 7 of those points came on a Jalen Ramsey defensive touchdown late in the game. We were up 7-0 for the whole game on BC. So Friday, and that was with Jameis and Dalvin and these guys. Like, weird stuff happens in conference on Friday night. So the ACC gave us 2 of those. And of course, the West Coast road trip. Again, you should beat Stanford 10 out of 10 times, but a 5.5-hour plane flight, all these things.
And
like
30 kick.
I mean, shoot, Miami played with their food all year last year, so I get that. But man, they were losing big to Cal at one point last year, a team that had just lost to Florida State. So I do hate the West Coast road trip. I'm not worried about the opponent. I'm more worried about the travel for those 3 games.
Well, here's the thing. You guys have been FSU fans a long time. So you have those ghosts of the past, but you're mentioning games from 2014 and maybe those haunt you. The kids on this team, they were 9 years old when that happened. They don't care about that. They're ready to go, in my opinion. I mean, they showed they were ready to go against Bama. Who knows? Are they going to go undefeated? I mean, who knows? It's a long road, but I don't think they're scared of going to Stanford, going to Raleigh, going to Charlottesville, any of those places.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not superstitious. I'm just a little stitious. And it's only a thing because it happens to be a thing. We'll see if this group can get past that curse.
And we didn't talk about this game this weekend. And I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead, but there's not a lot to be gleaned from it, right? When you're playing a team that is just, second level, they're actually FCS. And I mean, they got blown out by SMU this weekend. But I do think that it's easy to get up for Bama. I'm not saying it's easy to beat them, but it's very easy to get up for Bama. But the thing that makes truly elite teams elite is that they get up for all the teams, right? Like Jameis and them were up 35-0 on Nevada at halftime, right, in 2013. And 2023 was a good team, but they let bad teams hang around too long. And so if this team is good, then we'll all be happy because last year was such a disaster. But if this team wants to be elite, I think their mindset in the games that are not as tough, the Virginias and Stanfords and Wake Forests and East Texas A&M and Kent State, they'll put those teams to sleep in the first half, and then they'll play hangman on the sidelines, right? Like that's what I think that Florida State fans, again, you're not going to glean much from, oh man, the offensive line look good. Well, they need to look good. They could probably look good with about 50% effort. But if your mindset is right and you go out and just obliterate a team like this, like you're supposed to, and you do that week after week after week in the easy games, that'll almost impress me just as much as beating Bama. Like being able to take a bad team seriously and just getting done with it, that's a big deal to me.
Can I ask you guys real quick about team leadership and Castellanos? Last year, one of the recurring themes was there was no team leaders last year. This year, you have this transfer kid come in, got benched by Bill O'Brien up at BC, has this connection with Gus Malzahn. And we talked in the preview episode, when you get that connection of a quarterback with either a head coach, offensive coordinator, they seem to have it. And he talked the talk coming in, in the media days, his teammates had his back. And yeah, maybe he didn't have super impressive numbers or whatever, not going to lead the Heisman race, but the guy did what he needed to do on the field to get the win, kind of like Jameis did in the past. You know, he's probably not Jameis Winston, but what are your thoughts real quick on just the team leadership under Castellanos as the quarterback, and maybe other leaders that emerged going forward throughout the season?
I don't have the quote, and maybe TJ does, but there was news that leaked out at some point early in fall camp that was something to the effect of the coaches saying, this team doesn't need the team building exercises that last year's team needed. There are leaders. Tommy is doing a good job. Earl Little Jr. is a good job, doing a good job. Jackson is leading the line. Every position group seems to have that one guy that wants to be him. And they came into this with that Tommy C quote that got play, and all the other players said, we're here to back him up. We're here to do it. That was our team building exercise. And then to just come out against Alabama and punch them in the mouth. Alabama players said the disrespect is going to get addressed. I didn't see a single thing get addressed. And if you're an internet purveyor of Alabama, Florida State, you've seen some of the opposite being described in some videos that were shared. So the leadership is what was lacking last year. And when the things fell apart, nobody was willing to step up and do something about it. And I don't have any problem with this team and leadership.
Yeah, I'll echo Doug. The only thing I saw that the disrespect being addressed was that Bama fan that was wearing blue that gave the one finger salute to the crowd.
Yes.
But other than that, yeah, I mean, you mentioned. I'm glad you mentioned Earl Little, because I was going to let you take Tommy. I was going to say Earl. I think he took that game personally, having been there before. I think he took his last season personally. He was unplayable for much of the year, and he got in a little bit late. But I think Earl Little's a big one too. And then they've got guys all over the place. I mean, Luke Pettibon coming over from Wake Forest. He won the Offensive Lineman of the Week. There's a lot of really good leaders on this team that I did tell you guys this, I think, on our preview. These guys knew what they were signing up for, and they knew that it wasn't acceptable. And they said, we're going to change it. And it's one game. They got 11 more to go, but they look like they're on the right track to do that. And so, yeah, I don't question the leadership at all. And then, it all starts from the top. We question a lot of things about Mike Norvell. Heading into this game, through last year, all this stuff, there aren't a lot of questions about the kind of team and culture that he can build at this point.
Well, fellas, thank you guys so much for joining us again. I had to have you on to gloat just a little bit here about this awesome week one victory game against Alabama. And hey, we're watching you. Steve's following FSU, picking the FSU games, the ones that have lines. This week doesn't have a line, but he'll keep picking them.
No one on our live show is going to be giving me shit this week for picking Florida State. I'll tell you that.
We had a couple jabs to Steve on the live show. Even I did it, and he. That's why I wanted to give you a little, pat in the back. Well done.
That.
So, fellas, hey, thank you guys so much.
Take care.
Thank you guys. Go Noles.
All right, with that, hey, make sure you give this
You
one
guys
a
are
like
awesome.
and subscribe if you like our content, and we'll see you next time on the Big Mountain.